I've got an experiment that I want to run, trout fishing related, but I don't know anything about running experiments. Luckily, my next door neighbor, Andy Packwood, not only a Qantas pilot, but also an engineer. Let's go and see if my reasoning is valid. Lindy, where's your husband?
Indonesia.
When's he back?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. Luckily, you're also a pilot, so can I run a theory past you?
Are you recording me?
Yes, I'm recording you. Can I run a theory by you?
I want to get it right.
Yeah, no. I
it.
want your advice on whether a test is valid. Can I get your advice?
Sure.
Your professional
ahead.
opinion. Okay. You have to do it at your table.
Pardon?
At your table.
Okay.
Okay. So I've got Lindy and her son Geordie here to help me. Now, okay, this is the test. Okay. What I've done is I've bought a whole bunch of the latest Tippet that you use when you fly fish. And what I want to do is I want to independently test the strength of it. Okay, so I've got Cortland, RIO, Airflo, Scientific Angler, TroutHunter, and then I've got a random selection here from China called Icon Finesse Tippet. Now, what my theory is that I can tie, I've got these 5 flies here, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What my theory is that I take one of the tippets, let's say this Rio.
Fishing line.
Yeah, fishing line. I want to check the strength of the fishing line. I take this one, Rio, for example, and I break off 5 1-meter sections, and I do my regular fly fishing knot, the clinch knot, to the fly. Then, because I want to test the wet knot strength, I dunk it into this bowl full of water, and I leave it there for 5 minutes. Then, Geordie, just hold that up. What I then do is I take the fly with the line down below it, okay, and I hang it off the weight like that. And then 1 meter below it, like I wind the line over this tool, and then I pull down and I break it and I film the mass, and I do that 5 times, and then I average it. Do you think that would be a valid test for how strong the tippet is? Do you think there's anything that you can think of that's missing from that? Because you'd have 1 knot, and because I wrap it around here 5 or 10 times, I don't have a knot at the bottom, so I'm expecting it to break at the knot where Geordie is, and I get a reading over here 1 minute before, 1 second before the tippet breaks. So, as a pilot, as a professional, does this seem like a valid way to test tippet to you, Lindy?
Well, firstly, I think the perfect person for this would be Nicola, because she's just done HSC physics.
Where is your daughter?
At school. Living it up on the Gold Coast.
Okay. Well, Nicola's no use to us then. We can't rely on her tonight.
Yeah, so let's exclude Nicola. So my second comment would be, that sounds like a good plan to me.
Okay.
That's
all I need.
I'm just thinking that it would be a good idea. Yes, it sounds all scientifically sound to me, that except that you're pulling in the opposite direction.
That's true.
Because the fish will be at the bottom and you will be pulling in an upward motion, and in this experiment you're pulling in a downward motion. I don't know.
It's in the same place though.
I think I can live with that. I think I can live with that.
Should make it. I don't think
should make a difference. Good point though. Should make a difference.
It's because it's just inverted.
It is inverted.
So it won't make.
Okay, so this is a plan, right? We agree. We agree.
Well
Okay,
done, Rob.
agreed. Right, cool. Got a plan. All right, Geordie, let's check the accuracy of the, what's it called? Feedback sports scale. So at the moment, it is set to 0.000 kilograms. Okay, and we know we've got my son's 3 kg dumbbell there with a piece of string tied on it. Okay, let's weigh that. Perfect. Okay. Oh, well, that's unbelievable. That's 3.000. That's exactly 3 kg. So this is accurate. All right, so Geordie, so I think we've proved this is accurate. Lindy, what would we call that?
We would call this calibrating your equipment to make sure that none of the samples are biased.
Cool.
We call that baseline calibration.
Baseline calibration. You heard it here first. Early December, and what will probably be my last fishing trip of this calendar year. I've come down to the Snowies to fish the Snowy River below Lake Jindabyne at a farm called Lappy Farm. But I'm not sure what the fishing is going to be like. It's been raining all of last week and the river is very high. So I'll show you what it looks like, and we'll see how this goes. Day 1, water level. Back at the car after a completely unforgettable 1 hour fish. River dunkings 1, fish caught 0, possibility of catching fish 0, visibility 15 centimeters estimated. Options for the day. I could go up to the brewery up the road, Dalgety Brewery, and have a drink or lunch. Good option. Nana nap, update my diary, or do some Tippet strength testing. So in lieu of fishing today, I am going to do something I've been scheming about. I've been thinking about for a couple of weeks now, which is a test of Tippet strength, wet, not Tippet strength. So what I've got here is I've got TroutHunter 4X Fluoro, TroutHunter 4X Nylon, and then I've got the equivalent in Cortland, in SA, in Airflo, in RIO, and then a random Chinese-made Icon Finesse Tippet. And what my plan is I'm going to break off 5, say, 1.5 sections of nylon and fluoro. I'm going to tie them to these 5 flies. Going to dip them in the water here for 5 minutes. And then I'm going to test their braking strength. So to test the braking strength, I've rigged up a very scientifically reliable scale by Feedback Sports on the back of my caravan. It's very secure up there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind the tippet around this hook, and I'm going to pull down on it and break it. And just to test how accurate the scale is, my son's 3 kg dumbbell, and it's 3.03 kg, so I reckon that's accurate enough. Okay, so the flies are all now sunk in water, and I'm going to leave them there I'm going to record 5 minutes. So for the actual test, I'm going to hang the hook over here, and then hang the line down, and then I've got this device, cycling device. I'm going to wrap the leader around that cycling device, around the wood a few times, and hold it with my thumb, and then I'm going to pull down, and at the same time I'll have my GoPro recording the braking pressure, and then I'm going to do that 5 times, and then I'll get that all into a Google Sheet and calculate the averages. Right, TroutHunter Fluoro, take 1. Okay. TroutHunter Fluorocarbon 4X take 2. TroutHunter take 3. Now, this is very interesting and very unexpected. I've noticed that I've got pig's tails for the nylon on 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 5 that I did. So clearly my 7 loops around, which is really up down 1, up down 2, up down 3, and then up down and loop it in from the top, which I suppose is 4 loops around. That is clearly not enough with this nylon. So I'm going to repeat the test with the TroutHunter Fluoro and repeat the test with the Evo nylon, and I'm actually going to do another loop around in my knot. TroutHunter 4X Fluorocarbon. Testing now after I've changed my knot to be 5 complete loops of the line. TroutHunter Fluorocarbon 4X, clinch knot with 6 loops. TroutHunter Mono 4X, upgrade to clinch knot with 6 loops. So I'm camped on the banks of the Snowy River, and it was pretty well in flood yesterday, so I didn't really get a chance to fish much. As a result, I decided to do something that I've been thinking about for a while, which is to do a test of the tippet strengths of the various offerings in the Australian market. So I bought a whole bunch of fluorocarbons and a whole bunch of monofilament, and then I ran some tests yesterday. And for those tests, I went and spoke to a friend of mine who lives next door to me, who's a pilot, and sort of went through the methodology with them, because Lindy has sort of like an engineering background, just to see if the way I did it made sense. Now, a couple of things just to cover off. First of all, I am very, very brand loyal. My wife calls me a salesman's dream. So very often when I go into a shop, I've actually already done the research. I've already decided what I'm going to buy. But I'm also a brand snob, if I'm honest. I grew up in South Africa, a very simple upbringing in South Africa, and we didn't have any of the foreign brands in South Africa. So when I went to London, when I immigrated to London in 1997 with Barb's, I was really quite taken by all the brands that were available in London. I worked in the West End. I had an Orvis shop close by and had the Farlow shop not far away. And I spent hours looking at those brands and what was available. And that was sort of the stage that I got into brands like Rab and Arc'teryx for hiking, and I still love those brands today. Pink ties by a company called Pink. I bought a Panerai watch. Anyways, and then immigrated to Australia, got into Specialized bicycles. I still love Specialized bicycles. And then for hiking, I got into ultralight hiking. Again, Rab and Arc'teryx, I still love and use those. You'll often see me in my Rab down jacket or in my Rab raincoat. I think those are great. My Rab sleeping bags over there, I've had that for 25 years. When I got into ultralight hiking, I realized there were some new kids on the block. So again, I got into those brands. Hyperlight mountain gear, Z-Packs for the incredible tents, Top Tent for the incredible tents. So when I rediscovered trout fishing in December 22, I sort of had to make a choice as to what Tippet brand I was going to go with. Was I going to go with SA or RIO? SA was a little bit more expensive. Actually, the SA I felt was very expensive. So in the end, I just went with RIO. I noticed that they were both made in Japan, which I thought was important, and RIO, that was enough for me. And to be quite honest, I'm not unhappy with the RIO fluorocarbon that I've been using all year. It's readily available in shops. It's easy to find in Australia. And anyone who's watched any of my old videos will know that I rave about RIO 3X, which is really what I've probably fished the most this year. But I went fishing a couple of months ago with Nathan Walker, and he fished TroutHunter, and also told me that TroutHunter was used by a lot of the competitive anglers. And I decided that I'd give TroutHunter a go. I also had an experience quite recently when I was fishing up at Uncle Billy's, where Darren Asquith from Untamed Flies and Tackle had actually sent me a 9-foot 2X SA tapered leader. And I fished this in a dam at Uncle Billy's that had lots of weed in it, and I caught 3 or 4 big fish, including a 6-pounder. And I had to pull these fish through the weeds. And in the end, I actually ended up bending a hook, bending one of my jig hooks with that 2X. I was very, very impressed with the SA. I mentioned this to Darren actually, and he said to me that he believes that SA has very good knot strength, wet knot strength, and this is something I had never thought about before. On the outside of the package of every one of these tippets we buy, it's got a quoted strength, but we always fish it in the water. That's the wet strength. So I thought to myself, well, maybe I could do an experiment where I tie 5 flies onto tippet, then deposit it in water for, say, 5 minutes, and then test the strength. And actually, that is the test that I performed yesterday while I wasn't fishing. I tied 5 knots, left it in the water for 5 minutes, and then tested the breaking strength. And I did that for 11 tippets, and I went in a particular order, and then I reversed the order and I repeated the whole test again with 5 knots. So for every tippet I did 10 knots. I then excluded the 2 lowest ranking of those knots. So in my test results that I'm going to share with you, there's been 8 clinch knots. Now, for this year, since I was introduced to Scotty and fished with Scotty X, he just uses the clinch knot, not the improved clinch knot. So for all of these tests, I did a clinch knot. The first learning for me was in terms of the number of revolutions that you should do when tying the clinch knot. So this whole year, I've done 4 complete revolutions. But actually, when I tested the TroutHunter Nylon, I got pigtails. I think I got 3 or 4 pigtails. So I realized that actually that was not enough. So I then increased the number of loops to 5, and I got, I think, 1 pigtail. And then I increased the number of loops to 6, and I got no pigtails. So as a result, for the test, for all sort of 22 tests that I performed, for each one of those 5 knots, I did 6 complete revolutions of the line before passing it back through the loop. It certainly did seem to me as though the fluorocarbon was more forgiving for poorly tied knots. I never experienced any pigtails with any of the fluorocarbon, whereas, as I said, I did experience some pigtails with the monofilament. But more on that later. So now some conclusions with respect to the actual test results. First of all, there seems to be some issue with Cortland, and I'm not sure if it's the honesty of their packaging. I'm not really sure what it is, but the Cortland 6-pound monofilament, I in the end had to exclude that from the test results, because it says 6 pound, which to me would be 4x, So I would be expecting a diameter of 0.178 millimeters to 0.185 millimeters, like all the other Tippet. But for some reason, Cortland is 0.229 millimeters. So anyway, so I had to exclude that. One thing that I did notice is occasionally in my testing, especially early on, I would sometimes feel the knot pull a little bit and then break. And it just reminded me of the importance of properly seating a knot with a good tug, so the knot's all the way seated on the hook before you sort of start to fish with it. That's pretty obvious, but it's definitely something that I don't think I was doing properly. And again, I think that's because I fish a lot of fluorocarbon, or I have fished a lot of fluorocarbon this year, and I think the fluorocarbon is maybe a little bit more forgiving with knots. If we talk about some conclusions from the charts in front of you, first of all, we can conclude, or I can conclude, this is my opinion, I can conclude that fluorocarbon has a higher breaking strength. 4x fluorocarbon has a higher breaking strength than monofilament. The fluorocarbon averages 5.3 pounds breaking strength, and even if I exclude the Cortland fluorocarbon, it just drops to 4.9 pounds, whereas the monofilament is 4.6 pound average breaking strength for 4x. The second conclusion is fluorocarbon allows you to tie more consistent knots. So what I mean by that is that the difference between your weakest knot and your strongest knot appears to be more narrow. The band is more narrow for fluorocarbon, and that's shown by the standard deviation that I've got for both of those. At this point, I am reminded about what an incredible job the rods that we fish, these modern rods that we fish, do to protect these fine tippets. And I often think about how I'll try and pull a fly out of a whatever it's caught on. I'll try and pull it with the rod, and it seems as though I can't get it out. And then I'll pull the tippet directly, and the fly pulls out no problem at all. And I'm sure a lot of that is down to these incredible rods that we're lucky enough to fish with today. Right, back to the test results. So fluorocarbon is also closer to the quoted tensile strength on the tin than monofilament. So fluorocarbon, per my test, it's 80% accurate to what they've quoted on the tin. If I exclude the Cortland, it drops to 69.5 versus 62.5 for monofilament. So some final comments, in no particular order. The clinch knot, there were two breakages that I had with the clinch knot that were not at the hook, not at the knot, in other words. Both the Airflo, the Airflo and the SA fluorocarbon, they both broke somewhere else on the tippet, which I was quite surprised by that. Every other breakage that I did and every other test was at the knot. So I'm not sure if that's relevant or not, but just an FYI. I really cannot comment on this other benefit of fluorocarbon, this increased abrasion. I'm going to take other people's word for the fact that it has increased abrasion. I can comment on the fact that it sinks quicker than monofilament. It definitely does sink quicker than monofilament, and I notice that whenever I try and fish a dry fly with fluoro. And again, I can't comment on whether the fluoro is less visible to trout. I take other people's word for that. During this whole test, I couldn't help but think if perhaps another knot, other than the clinch knot, might actually have been a better knot to tie. I know Nathan Walker, I'm pretty sure Nathan Walker ties a 1620, because when I see him tie a fly on, he always uses his forceps. So maybe that's something to consider for a next round of testing. And I also did wonder during this test whether an improved clinch knot would actually have given a better strength, but who knows. In terms of further investigation on this topic, I would highly recommend that you take a look at the Yellowstone Anglers' incredible test that they've done on knot strengths. And I'll leave a link for that in the video description.